as they face off in different competition. And so this will be exciting. But today's podcast is going to be centered purely around discussing each movie. We're probably going to give each movie a couple of minutes to dish out. If you're joining and you're watching us, please comment, enjoy the movies, compliment them, bash them, whatever you want to say. Bash us, that's fine too. So we'll probably be ruining some of your classics that you love. And yeah, I look forward to embarking on this journey. We did this actually a couple of years ago, probably not as put together as it is today, but start off, I definitely want to give a shout out to Austin, because he's been a complete badass with setting this up together, and he's put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of research, and constructing this bracket. And I think he's done a really good job of being fair to everyone too, because he's posted some posts for you to comment on movies you like. And he's also been giving kind of tidbits and snippets of what to expect and given enough time to vote. So we'll go through the mechanics of how this tournament's going to work. But yeah, today is the first of 8 or so, 5, 8, how many? I don't know. Some number, some number of podcasts, right? Every couple of weeks we'll do one to talk through each round. But yeah, Vince, what do you think, man?
Oh man, another bracket I'm excited for. I think this time around we're gonna get this right, because not that it wasn't right before. You have always done a great job with polls, but I will say
thank you.
You're great with polls. But
it's the only thing I'm good with.
Yeah. What I will say is different is Austin, actually, this is totally his baby. He approached us with this idea, and we, for the first time, are integrating podcasts into the polling. So we're going to make this an interactive thing throughout the holiday season. Hello, Ricky. Welcome, our first visitor. And basically, Jake and I are going to kick off the polls. We'll go over the ground rules for it, how you should be evaluating this, and introduce the matchups. We'll give our insight into the matchups, how we would vote, how we're going to vote, and then the polls are going to open once this episode ends. But absolute credit to Austin. He's the godfather of this whole thing. He's going to join us on future podcasts, and that's going to be super fun. But it's Jake and I now. We have Pop Culture Life kicking off here. This is the first one. So this is a trial thing too, because this could go out throughout 2022. We've already had requests for other sorts of stuff, best movie overall, best Halloween movie, all sorts of stuff. So we're trying to make pop culture go to that next level. We thank you for joining. And of course, the only way that's going to entertain me is participation from all of you. And most importantly, Facebook not screwing with my comments like they do on Dong City, where I can't tell who's commenting. So that's the most important thing.
We'll get Austin on a few of these, right?
So yeah, I think everyone from here on out after this one, I think he will join us for and kind of get to keep track of this stuff. So we're excited. We'll get it underway here. There's a lot to get through today. We don't want to waste too much time. Jake, obviously, thank you for joining me, and vice versa. We want interaction galore as we go through here. And as you can tell from my earlier post, Jake helping me with a setup to come into the 21st century for podcasts. So I'm excited for that too. You can hear my
thank yourself.
Yes,
my vice versa.
Yes, and my right.
That was awesome.
And my booming voice now is a booming mic, so that's exciting.
That's great.
So why don't you kick it off for us, Jake? Well, here, I'll go over the ground rules, then we'll go into the matchups. Sure. Ground rules here, we have 4 different regions. This was a collective effort between Austin, Jake, and I to figure out what's the best way to go about this. Because we could have just ranked them 1 through 32 as far as, IMDb rankings, Rotten Tomato rankings, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, what we realized is we don't want a Die Hard versus Batman Forever final, because that's not in the spirit of how winter holiday movies work. So we did it by category, and then we ranked so we can come up with the seating. So we have the classics category, which we'll get to those matchups. We have the modern category, which is kind of the ones that probably most of us grew up with. I think we're all kind of in the same demographic. There's a few extremes. And then we have misfits. Those are the ones those are going to be the pretty popular ones, the Lethal Weapons, the Die Hards of the world. And then we have kids, which are like, your cartoonish type movies. Another popular question we've had about how to go about this is, what do I vote for when there's like 16 variations of A Christmas Carol or something like that? And what Austin's done a good job specifying, I'll specify again right here. Vote for your favorite version of whatever that is. And that includes sequel movies. Like Home Alone is in there once. If you think Home Alone's a better movie, Home Alone 2 is a better movie than Home Alone 1, then you're voting for Home Alone 2 in that situation. So you're giving the best credit you can to those situations. We want to specify that right off the bat as we get into the voting here. So now that I've gotten those ground rules out of the way, Jake, why don't you lead us into the bracket itself?
Yeah, let's do this thing. So I'm gonna share my screen for most of the podcast today, so you guys can see how the bracket is set up. I don't know if you think, am I zoomed in good enough?
I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, why don't we kick it off with let's see, let's kick it off maybe with the most common that we know. We'll go with modern over here in the top right.
Nice.
So yeah, so this will have a lot of juggernauts, I think, on this side of the bracket, modern movies. And right out the gate, the number 1 seed, Nightmare Before Christmas, very controversial movie to have, because there's a crowd of people that say this is a Halloween movie, and there's another crowd of people, oh, this is a Christmas movie. Well, guess what, both of you, it's actually both. So it's Halloween and Christmas in a movie. There's actually multiple towns, but Tim Burton made a really creative, musical driven animated stop animation movie, and it took them over 3 years to make this movie, but centers around Jack, who is really the town's most famous Halloween guy, and he stumbles upon Christmas Town to fill in a void that he has that he can't get past, and discovers this wonderful thing known as Christmas, and takes it in a complete opposite direction by like kidnapping Santa Claus and trying to be Santa Claus. But he believes this is what Halloween Town needs. And so that is that movie. Vince, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Nightmare Before Christmas. Have you seen this masterpiece?
Yeah, I've seen Nightmare Before Christmas actually a few times, so I feel pretty good talking about it. To this day, I am the Grinch of both takes. It really is, out of all of these movies, because we get the diehard arguments, right? Is that a Christmas movie? Nightmare Before Christmas, like you said, is interesting because it's definitely a holiday movie. The question is, which holiday is actually a movie for? This one I'm very torn. I see merit in both, and I'll say this straight up, Jake, because this will be a theme as we go through here. I am punishing movies I don't think have the actual Christmas spirit. Like when I vote, the Misfits is going to have a tough time, because I'm not looking for the best movie out of these 32. I'm looking for the best holiday movie out of these 32. So that does weigh in for me. Nightmare Before Christmas by nature is going to lose a little bit because there's a very strong Halloween aspect to it, but I see a lot of merit for it being a Christmas movie. So I like A Nightmare Before Christmas. It's enjoyable. It's family friendly. It's tolerable, which for me, a lot of holiday movies aren't. Very worthy of a 1 seed for this particular category. I think a lot of people would argue a different one on here is worthy of the one. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas, as my wife points out, Christmas is in the title. Yeah, I mean, I think it belongs here. That's the first thing. And it's going up against Just Friends, which Just Friends was like one of those movies that had a big kind of cult following when we were doing nominations. Like a lot of people were like, Just Friends belongs here. So tell us about that one. Like what is it? This I haven't seen, so it's going to be at a disadvantage here. What is Just Friends all about?
So Just Friends came out mid 2000s, I think. First of all, the main star is Ryan Reynolds, and now Ryan Reynolds is one of is a gigantic actor whose movies are just doing very, very well. And this probably alongside Van Wilder was kind of his coming out party of comedy. And I believe it is an underrated Christmas movie. It is centered around Christmas. He basically is a high school student who was a nerd, was best friends with like the most popular girl, in love with her. He was fat, dorky, and there's a classic scene of him singing "And I Swear" as that kind of when he's in high school. And anyways, long story short, he gets made fun of, gets pissed off, moves away, becomes a very successful music producer, loses the weight, gets really fit, turns into Ryan Reynolds in modern day, and is kind of entertaining this giant pop star who he's basically flying out to record an album. And they wind up stopping in his hometown. And basically, the movie takes place with him reconnecting with his hometown, who he hasn't been back to visit and get to know in a very long time, because obviously he has bad memories from that. And his love interest in high school becomes his love interest in the movie, and it's just very, very funny. Anna Faris plays the pop star. She's fantastic in it. There's classic scenes that go on, and just his mother is an underrated character. She's super funny. She's like the typical, like, I'm so nice and I'm the mother who makes cookies and cheers my boy on, and
it's a good Christmas mother.
And he's just Ryan Reynolds in nature. And so I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. I don't know if it'll upset Nightmare Before Christmas. So actually, this might be the last episode we talk about it. But yeah, it's super funny. Highly recommend going to see it. And it's got some. What I love about Christmas movies is that they have underlying themes that pertain to real life, right? And like this is like a theme of a movie of like, I went through very tough times in high school that makes me regret kind of and want to abandon that persona and move on to this new persona that I have. And I can relate to that. I went to Massachusetts and start over, and I was like, I get to create my own self again. No one knows me. And, he has to come back to this town and quickly find out, like maybe it's not as crazy important as him being this huge successful producer as he thought. And really he should be this high school kid all along. So it's a comedy. It's kind of a romance. It is a Christmas movie. Christmas is not the main theme of it, but it takes place throughout Christmas. So yeah, pretty good one.
Yeah. So just quick tale of the tape as we wrap up this matchup. Personally, I would vote for Nightmare Before Christmas. That's my official vote on this one. But I do think, the more I familiarize myself, and I do actually remember when this movie came out, now that I know a little bit about it. Ryan Reynolds, Amy Smart, Anna Faris, Chris Klein. Pretty good cast for that time period, 2005. You got Oz from American Pie, Anna Faris of current Instagram controversy, Amy Smart, and Ryan Reynolds.
So good as Dusty. Like Oz is, he's also a nerd that couldn't hack it back in high school. That in modern state is Oz, who's a good-looking, fit dude who's like a EMT, and he's just like, everyone loves Dusty, and Ryan Reynolds' character keeps failing, and it's so good, the dynamic between the two.
Yeah.
And my friends and I to this day still use a phrase that he said, because at the end he obviously doesn't get the girl that Dusty doesn't get the girl, and Ryan Reynolds does. So he like gets all pissed off, does a spin move, and goes, "F this, I'm mobile." And that's like his line, "F this, I'm mobile." And so my friends and I use that to this day. It's great.
Yeah. So, this is a nice little feel-good movie. It came out in late November, so it's an official Christmas movie. 2005, 50 million at the box office. Nothing to sneeze at for this type of movie. I always find this stuff fascinating. This is how you can tell that it's actually a good movie. 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is terrible. 84% from Google users like it. So that people actually like it. It's just critics hate it. So yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah,
I don't think any of these Christmas movies outside of like, It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas are really probably going to get like super amazing critic review.
It's like comedies. They're not great movies, but people enjoy them. And the only other thing I'll say about this one is that, the 50 million, like I said, at the box office is pretty good. People are not going to vote based on that, but I find that interesting. And it's a romance comedy. So we'll see how that does. It wouldn't shock me if that was a pretty close vote, although I think a lot of people really like Nightmare Before Christmas. Just one of those movies that doesn't get mentioned in like the upper echelon of Christmas movies because not everyone's certain it's a Christmas movie.
Sure.
So
it's Halloween disguised as Christmas. But yeah. And I think too, like, I think Nightmare Before Christmas will win this one, probably because I don't even know if a lot of our pop culture life group has seen Just Friends. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Where everyone has seen Nightmare Before Christmas, and that's like a staple of the holiday movies. So
I'm shocked I didn't go on a date to see that movie.
Wait, Nightmare Before Christmas?
No. Just I was like 7
okay.
when that movie came out. Just Friends came out when I was a senior in high school, freshman in college in November during the holiday time.
Oh yeah.
Ryan Reynolds. I'm just shocked. Looking back, I'm shocked that this was not something in my life that I've seen. I'm disappointed in myself now.
And random cast. I know we're going on already on like 10 minutes of this matchup, but
needs to end.
I know. That was my last comment, just in case we don't. Just Friends doesn't make it. The boss of Ryan Reynolds' character. So he works for a record producing company, right?
Yeah.
The boss is Milton, I think, from Office Space, the stapler guy.
Yeah.
And he's like not stapler guy at all. He's like super like tough, like badass, music producer. It's hilarious. But
I like that.
Anna Faris in this movie is just she's prime. She's primo.
Yeah.
And Amy's smart, American
Always.
Pie.
Yeah.
And so we'll move on. Let's go to our 2 seed, Love Actually. I normally would introduce this one, Vince, but I know this one is very dear to your heart. So I'm going to let you introduce this movie.
Love Actually, for me, there's 3 movies and this is just me personally. I'm not trying to sway the vote one way or another. There's 3 movies in this tournament that I think should win. Any of the 3 I'd be fine with, but there's 3 to me that stick out. This is one of them. Reason being, and of those 3, I'll say, Jake, I don't think you like or have seen 2 of them, or have seen 2 of them. Okay. But this is one of them. Yeah, I know you've seen this because we saw it together, and I know you didn't particularly like it. But
when we met, there was 3 things Vince said to me. 1, I'm dating your sister. 2, do you like sports? And 3, have you seen Love Actually?
Yeah, this is an important litmus test movie for me. Like people, as I evaluate people, have you seen Love Actually? What did you think of it? Because if you haven't seen it, that's a problem. And if you have seen it and you didn't like it, that's also a problem. Love Actually is a quintessential. We talked about the theme. Like there's certain themes that go into Christmas movies. This for me is a quintessential theme. If you were a guy who is not particularly fond of chick flicks, we'll say. And to me, there's a difference between chick flicks and a romantic comedy. A chick flick to me is only the female perspective of a romantic comedy, whereas a romantic comedy is just a funny movie about relationships. This is a romantic comedy. It is not a chick flick. And I think personally for me, it is probably my favorite one. And it has a heavy holiday theme to it. There is an airport montage in this movie that gets me every single time. My closest friends make fun of me because I'm obsessed with airports. I love air travel. I evaluate airports. I rank them. I list them. At one point in my phone, I had all of them ranked out, all of the airports I can remember I've ever been to my life. There's an airport montage in this movie that is all about kind of like the magic of people at airports, because it's true. You get the soldiers who come home and like their family's waiting. You have the surprises. You have the people who haven't seen each other, family who haven't seen each other for years. People are coming and going from all sorts of places. Anyway, that's like the overall kind of feel of this movie is you're getting all sorts of intertwined love stories, which I also love when that happens. Doesn't have to be love. It can be anything. Christmas is like, it's like injected into Love Actually. So I think this is a really strong movie for this bracket. It has become, this is another nice part about it. It's become problematic over the years in that now a lot of women in particular have an issue with it because they think that some of the love in this movie is toxic. Andrew Lincoln from The Walking Dead, who I believe is gay in real life, is one of the love interests in this movie. And I think so. He is now considered creepy by today's standards for some of the stuff.
There's anything wrong with that?
No, not at all. It adds to the layers here. So it for me, it's great. I love it. I try to watch it every year. It's one of those movies that's in my like traditional rotation here. It's going up against Christmas with the Cranks, which makes me a little bit nervous for people like you, Jake.
It's going to destroy Christmas with the Cranks, but
it's also this is a really tough region to me. I think
this would be like Appalachian State beats Michigan. Like,
okay, yeah, you're way more confident than I am in this matchup.
if it happens. So we'll get into the Cranks in a second. But yeah, Love Actually, like, no, I think I would vote for Love Actually here because it deserves to win.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I like Christmas with the Cranks is just like a stupid movie that I like to watch every Christmas that is really just terrible, but I like to watch it.
Your tolerance for those movies is much stronger than mine.
Yeah, it's like the newest Star Wars movies. They can't make a bad Star Wars for me just because I'm in love with the universe. Christmas is the same. Like, you just make any Christmas movie, I'll like it. Right. Ironically, Love Actually is near the bottom for me, but I understand why it's good. I mean, it takes like, whatever, 10, 8, 10, 9, how many stories, and just makes them in one movie, which is really cool. The opening to the movie, I think it was the opening, I was like, this is awesome. It's Bill Nye singing this super catchy song. And I was like, whoa, this is great. And it's got great actors in it, Hugh Grant and a couple others. And I think like they even have a story around the prime minister. Like, it's just, they do a really good job of just taking a lot of elements and smashing it into an hour and a half. And yeah, it's a nice story. It's got good end. Alan Rickman's in it. I totally forgot about freaking Alan Rickman.
And Mr. Bean.
Alan Rickman might have the most movies on here comparatively to Tim Allen, by the way. He's in Die Hard and he's in Love Actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, it should win this round. I am excited for it to go down and cause you serious heart palpitations in the later rounds. But yeah, it makes sense. I'm sure we'll have much more to say about it as it progresses in the tournament, but it's a solid movie that has every ingredient into a Christmas film you would want to see. I just, for some odd reason, did not enjoy it as much. And I think maybe just it was overrated for me. I don't know. I walked in with high expectations and I don't know, but maybe I should watch it again. I didn't give it a fair shot.
Yeah, give it a second shot. I mean, I can see to a small degree why people might not love it as much as I do. I do think it has stood the test of time. I know culturally people, like I said, it's a little more problematic now than when it came out, but for me, it's not. And as you know, I'm a big stickler for how things age. And Love Actually, for me, passes that test. Give me a quick synopsis on, well, I guess you go to bat for Christmas with the Cranks before we move on to the next
matchup. Let's see. I got 4 words for you. Tim Allen, Dan Aykroyd. So start there. So it's got the cast. Jamie Lee Curtis too. It's got the cast. Some other ones that are just, you'll see like, oh, I know that dude, but you'll know what he's from. Every year, the Cranks put on the best Christmas party in town every year. And the neighborhood goes all out and they have Frosty the Snowman that goes on every roof. And it's a cookie cutter neighborhood. And there's all decorations and it's beautiful and amazing. And there's ham and liquor and cookies and food and an awesome party. But their daughter has decided to go to college away in a different country. Ooh. And their daughter is so special to them. And they realize, you know what? Maybe this year we shouldn't do Christmas at all. Maybe it'll be cheaper for us to go on an incredible cruise across the Caribbean and forget about Christmas. So they commit. And when I say commit, I mean they commit to not doing Christmas. No decorations, no music, no celebrating. And the ridiculousness of how much that offends this neighborhood and everyone that they're choosing to not partake in Christmas is what kind of makes this movie. And so, throughout the entire movie, it's basically Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis trying to avoid everyone and go to their cruise, while everyone else is, and Dan Aykroyd, who's like kind of, I guess, like I don't know if he's like the HOA guy or just like a guy that really cares about Christmas, but he and his kids and other neighbors basically are trying to convince them to put up their decorations. And it's kind of like an underground, like neighborhood mafia of just Christmas fans that don't want them to spoil Christmas. And so, it kind of climaxes with they find out right before they're about to go on a cruise that their daughter Claire is going to be coming back for Christmas, and she's bringing her fiance that they haven't met. And so now they have to rush within like 10 hours to set up this Christmas party again for her and the rest of the neighborhood. And everyone comes together and it pulls off and the fiance is awesome. And he winds up giving the cruise tickets away to the neighbor that he has is his arch nemesis, but his wife is like dying with cancer. So it's got some like really good feel good moments. Definitely doesn't live in the same world as Santa Claus with Tim Allen or any of these other Christmas movies. The humor is just, it's not like great. It's like, oh, that's funny. Okay. But it's not like belly laughing.
This is a legit 2-7 then.
Yeah, it's a good 2-7. I think it'll score some points early, but then in the second half, Love Actually will wake up and demolish it. So that's where I'll go with that one.
That's fair. I will have to invite people into the group if that doesn't happen to vote for Love Actually.
All of a sudden, a bunch of fake accounts like Mince Verkendetti. And,
I didn't have burners before, but I might cross that bridge for this.
Love Actually fan 47. So let's move on to a whopper of a matchup in round one. We may not even escape the modern bracket by the end of this podcast. We're taking too long. Elf, really quickly, Elf, hysterical movie. Will Ferrell is at the center of it. I'm sure my colleague here will disagree with me, but basically, Buddy the Elf is a big elf. He winds up traveling to the real world in New York to go meet his parents. And there's a lot of comedy and singing and ridiculousness that goes on throughout the movie. And he winds up saving Christmas versus Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad starring at the helm here, where basically it's a very amazing representation of what every parent went through until technology took over, which is the hottest toy is sold out. You can't get it. And the dad is just working his ass off and trying to be a good dad by working all the time, forgets about his son, doesn't go to the karate tournaments, and forgets about Turbo Man, the hottest toy of the season, and is sold out. So the movie just is basically him running from store to store and going through obstacle and obstacle to try and get this Turbo Man doll for his son, who is one of the worst actors in the history of mankind. But the movie is the Jake Lloyd. From Star Wars.
Shitty Anakin.
Boba.
Oh my god.
He's just terrible. But everyone else, Phil Hartman's the neighbor, who's just awesome. Sinbad is I think Sinbad may be one of the best Christmas movie characters of all time, if not the best. Plays like a disgruntled postman that just can't get it together for his kid. It's him and Arnold Schwarzenegger just going back and forth trying to get this Turbo Man doll. And it's got classic lines. It's got every element of a Christmas movie. The music in it, there's something about a Christmas movie that Home Alone and Jingle All the Way, they get it right, where they play the classic Christmas songs. If you watch a Christmas movie, the classic Christmas songs should be played. And Jingle All the Way does a great job at that. This one is a cult following. It did not do well in the box office. I think probably got poor reviews on critics, but people who love it really love it. I met Jess and I was like, Jingle All the Way is my tradition. She's like, Jingle All the Way is my tradition. There we go. We're going to get married. And so, it's got that element. Elf versus Jingle All the Way, powerful matchup in round one. I definitely want to hear your opinions because I know you're one of the camp of hating Will Ferrell in standalone role or main actor role movies. So
well, I'm glad you specified that. I'll give my thought and then we can move on to the next matchup. And I actually have pretty strong thoughts about both of these movies. Elf, I will say this, as you mentioned, I am not a Will Ferrell fan as a main actor, which I think gets confused a lot. I don't inherently hate Will Ferrell. I think that he is a bit character as a ceiling, for his talent. He should have never left SNL. He's I enjoyed him on SNL. I enjoy him as Ashley, whatever his name is, in Eastbound and Down, those types of roles. I think he's fine. But if you're talking about Anchorman and Elf and everything basically except A Night at the Roxbury, I think he's a terrible. That's my least favorite movie of all time. I hate him. So Elf comes out and this is what's fun. Obviously, that, your sister, my wife, is Jewish. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah. So we watch Elf. Elf is her favorite Christmas movie. And I don't think it's particularly close. I don't mind Elf, which I think is a testament to the movie because, as you know, I'm not a big Will Ferrell as a main character fan. So I don't mind watching Elf. I think as the years go on, it grinds on me a little bit because we watch it basically every year, and I don't love it that much. But I am a big Zooey Deschanel fan, and I also I don't mind Will Ferrell in this movie. I think this is a type of movie where Will Ferrell is
Okay.
tolerable. So.
Fair.
And it is a really, really good. It's got the Christmas formula down really, really well. I mean, the entire plot of this movie, it's great as far as Christmas goes. The message at the end is great. The solution to the problem is great. The bad guys are great. Everything is great about that. So I like Elf a lot. I'm actually shocked it's a 3 seed. I really thought it would be like a 1 or a 2.
Oh, wow. I think
yeah.
in like probably in like modern generations, like Gen X to Gen Z, well, not even, maybe not Gen Z, Gen X to like millennial,
Yeah.
they probably like this movie a lot. But like boomers and like other generations,
yeah, they probably don't
aren't
get
as
it.
crazy. Probably is not crazy.
Yeah, they're more of a classics. What I'll say is
Buddy
that
Duff, what's your favorite color?
What I'll say is that Jingle All the Way,
Ah.
I don't like as much as Elf as a movie goes, but I will say this: shitty Anakin Jake Lloyd, which, by the way, real quick rant on that. To have a terrible boy Anakin and a terrible adult Anakin is like, that is really sad. To have Hayden Christensen as his adult.
Poor Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the only movie I hate Hayden Christensen in. Anyway, you've got
Jumper.
Arnold, Sinbad, Phil Hartman, Rita Wilson, Jake Lloyd, and Jim Belushi. That's a really good cast.
Oh, Jim Belushi.
Yeah. And this movie came out in the heyday of 2 things.
Oh, yeah.
One is that holiday 90s movies, which I think is probably the best decade overall for holiday movies.
Sure.
And since it came out in 96, you've got like the 90s, just the 90s stench in this movie makes me happy because you've got the workaholic, you've got the workaholic main character, which is like the theme I feel like in every single kids movie in the 90s for some reason, or just like some sort of shitty father. But anyway, you were absolutely right. 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, but
that's not good.
87% Google user rating.
Whoa.
So this is like a very extreme version. It actually made 130 million at the box office, which is which is incredible to me, especially in 1996 numbers. Came out in November, official holiday movie.
That was way off.
I didn't know Chris Columbus produced it. That kind of shocks me.
And he's great.
And so I mean,
he's Home Alone, right?
Yeah, I think Jingle All the Way has a lot going for it. I do think it's going to lose to Elf because of people like my wife who are like ravenous about loving that movie.
Yeah, I will say this, like, and then it's got like a Stampede in front of it, like it's got some pretty brutal competition to get through. If it like was facing off against like a Fred Claus or an Xmas with the Cranks type thing, like I think it would sneak in.
Yeah, two harsh matchups, assuming that the favorites win.
It's got a tough road. It's got like the Giants road ahead in 2007, although you know how that ended.
Yeah,
so
it's going on the road for all these matchups. So why don't you take us into the Battle of the Clauses?
The last thing I will tell you. So for all you Seinfeld fans out there, Danny Woodburn, who plays Mickey in Seinfeld, he was an elf to Kramer Santa Claus in a Seinfeld episode. And he was actually the elf to Jim Belushi's Santa Claus in Jingle All the Way, which I thought was pretty interesting, and a fun fact. But yeah, all right, my Jingle All the Way. Let's move on. We're going to our 4 and 5 seed, the last matchup of the modern holiday movies. We have the Santa Claus. It's a play on words there because it's like the Santa Claus is a clause as well as the Santa Claus. Tim Allen is, again, we're going to roll with this dad failure theme that not a great dad, divorced with his wife, and he's getting his son on Christmas. He's a very successful toy businessman, ironically. Santa Claus falls off his roof. He puts on the jacket, and that is the clause that says you will take over Santa's job. So the movie is about him becoming Santa Claus. Classic Christmas film centered around Christmas, centered around Santa Claus. Tim Allen in his like heyday. Very Disney loved him. Ironically given his past, but whatever. But he's hilarious in it. He's got a lot of great. I love when like Disney movies make jokes for like the adults too. Like as a kid, you go and see it, and like, I love this movie, but he's got some cracks in there that are like specific for adult humor. Like, like, oh, it's okay, I lived in the 60s, like stuff like that just like kids wouldn't get, but adults will crackle at. So yeah, he basically is becoming Santa Claus. He's in shock of it. And then it kind of plays on the whole, like, he's going too far. So the ex-wife is trying to take custody away from him, but his son obviously believes in him. And yeah, it's a fun movie. It's got some underlying themes in it, like I said, of like being a divorcee, you're trying to battle over custody of your child, and anything can ruin it. But the family coming together at the end. And then they actually spawned off like sequels to this. Some people are not crazy about sequels. I love them. I remember seeing the third one with Martin Short in college. I saw it with my friends and we liked it, but it's terrible. Like, I would tell you it's a bad movie, don't watch it, but I liked it for some stupid reason.
Sure.
So don't trust my opinion on Love Actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. And then before I let you comment real quick, I'll go over Fred Claus. Fred Claus is a movie probably most people don't know about, but it's Vince Vaughn and Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti plays Santa Claus. Fred Claus is played by Vince Vaughn, who is Santa Claus's brother. And so basically the plot is Santa Claus is born. He's like the star child. He's the younger brother to Fred. Fred is, at first loves him as a kid, but then quickly realizes that he's the star child. So Fred goes on this basically like, screw you streak, moves to New York and can't hack it. He's just doing all sorts of odd jobs and, taking people's houses away and stuff. What's that called again? That job?
A repo?
A repo man. And it's just funny because like Santa gives and he's taking away. So there's that theme. But basically he always cons his brother. His brother's a saint, so he always does good. So he cons his brother into saying, hey, I need you to give me money to bail me out of jail. And his brother's like, well, if you want this money, you're going to have to come up to the North Pole and help out this year. So then basically the whole movie is, Fred Claus and the North Pole trying to hack it. And then Kevin Spacey is the villain. And he's like this stats research guy who represents like the overall, like, I guess, fictional characters company who's analyzing Santa to keep him in business. And he's basically wants him to be out of business. And so there's that whole mess that's taking place. And then Rachel Weisz is the love interest. Like, you talk about a cast. Ludacris plays an elf. It's just like, it's an amazing ensemble. It's underrated. I like it. It's got comedy, romance, and it's another take on Christmas by following the brother of Santa Claus, which is cool.
Yeah, if you told me that, we'll add Liz Banks into it too. Elizabeth Banks, Kevin Spacey, Rachel Weisz, right, and Paul Giamatti were going to make a holiday movie, one would have been excited, and two, I would be so confused as to what the plot of that movie could possibly be. And maybe Fred Claus delivers on that. But here's the main difference. I'll keep it short here. Fred Claus to me is a fun holiday movie. I think the Santa Claus is an actual good movie. I think as far, I don't need to see it in the context of Christmas. Obviously, the entire thing is Christmas related. I don't need to see it in the context of Christmas to think that that's a good movie I spent my money on and didn't regret it. The Santa Claus is a good movie. It's a feel-good movie. Tim Allen does a tremendous job. I mean, he really makes it believable. It's somewhat absurd. Santa, like you said, he gets injured or whatever on his roof, and then Tim Allen has to become Santa Claus and starts taking on like aspects of Santa Claus that he can't control. But just he really makes it believe, like, that whole
Which
thing
is
was
funny in itself,
right? So that's the main difference to me, is that I think the Santa Claus is an actual good movie. It is absolutely a holiday. They're both holiday movies. Fred Claus is just fun. To me, this is not a close 4 to 5 matchup. I'm
shocked Fred Claus was a 5.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and generous. I guess they can all be top 3 seeds, but the Santa Claus is, to me, it's not in my top 3 that I had listed earlier. But it is an absolute. It's to me a tough movie, I think, to knock out if other people feel similar to me, as far as how good it is.
Absolutely.
Now, unfortunately for these movies, they are probably facing Love Actually in the second round. And if they get past that, they're probably facing Elf or Nightmare Before Christmas.
I'm ready for Santa Claus to take down Love Actually in the next round.
That could be, that's a legitimate
that's a good matchup
of two very different perspectives on what is defined as a Christmas or a holiday movie. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. But that is our modern division. Pretty good matchups. I wouldn't say any of those matchups are like absolutely they shouldn't be facing against each other. But Love Actually, Christmas with the Cranks is a legitimate 2 to 7 matchup.
Yeah, I feel like the modern bracket is like an 80s / early 90s babies like fantasy.
Yeah, this is good. That's like you can rename it for pop culture life mostly. You can rename it the nostalgia bracket because it's either you watched this when you were a little kid, or if you're a little bit older, you probably watched it with your kid.
Yes.
I think it's gonna appeal to a lot of people. Let's go to the next one.
Let's scoot over. Do you decide you want to go down? What should we do here?
Let's go to classics. Is a nice counter to modern. So
let's do it. All right, classics. You're gonna have to help me out here with this first matchup, but I'll give it a shot to start off. So we have It's a Wonderful Life, which I know is an extremely popular film, and I don't know why I haven't seen it, to be completely honest. I'm going to watch it though for the sake of this bracket because I feel like it will go far. I believe I could be wrong. It's the only film on this list that was nominated for an Academy Award. I could be wrong, but it was in 5 other Academy Awards, which is pretty outstanding. It's not only on like best Christmas movie of all time, it's actually on like best movie of all time list. So it's a really strong 1 seed. It's got the whole guardian angel visiting and kind of convincing the main character that life is better than what he foresees it as, and so let me paint a picture of what life wasn't like. It's got some classic actors back in the 40s, from that time. James Stewart and Donna Reed. But yeah, I need to see it. I don't know too much about it other than what I've read. So with that, I'll kind of let you take us into the rest of It's a Wonderful Life and also White Christmas.
Yeah, here, I mean, they're both classics. Obviously, it's in the classic division. It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. One thing I think, I'll start with the things that might hurt it. One is that it's super old. Now, a lot of the classic movies are old, but like Home Alone is not old like It's a Wonderful Life is. So if you like, when you go back and watch it, you're going to see, I mean, some of the graphics are just laughable at this point. It's in black and white if you're watching the original version. The acting though is fantastic. I mean, Jimmy Stewart, Donna Reed is the main character who I had a crush on my entire childhood. Yeah, she was like my first love from entertainment. So, and then you got Frank Capra. I mean, there's people in there. Lionel Barrymore, Drew Barrymore's grandfather, I think, plays the villain.
Nice.
Yeah. So you've got stuff like that. So
I just saw real quick, Henry Travers is in this. I don't know who that is, but is he related to P.L. Travers, who wrote Mary Poppins?
Could be, possibly. I would look into it.
That'd be wild,
because a lot of Hollywood was family like that back then.
Yeah. Travers could be a pen name. I don't know if that's a real name.
Yeah.
I think it is. But
and he plays Clarence, who is the guardian angel, aforementioned angel.
Oh, okay. So, got it.
Anyway, It's a Wonderful Life. Here's what you have to know about It's a Wonderful Life. It is probably 10 tiers better of a movie than anything else in this entire bracket. It's, I mean, if you were ranking the top, actually, when New York Times did rank the top movies of the 20th century, It's a Wonderful Life was ranked, I forget where, but I think it was in the top 50. It has been ranked repeatedly as the most inspirational movie of all time. Jimmy Stewart obviously is a legitimate lead actor all time. And the plot, if you get past the graphics and the datedness of it, the timeness of it, it is just a fantastic message. It tells you that, I mean, the slogan of the movie is "No man who has friends is worthless." I'm obviously blanking now, even though I've heard it a million times. No man is a failure who doesn't have friends, or no man with friends is a failure. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just very, very inspirational because everyone in life at some point feels badly about their life or gets frustrated or sad or depressed. And this movie really shows you that It's not about money, and it's not about fame, and it's not about materialism or anything else. At the end of the day, it's about love and being loved and loved ones. And you really see George Bailey as a young kid. That's Jimmy Stewart, the main character. The things he does that you would never just pay attention to that stuff unless you had a guardian angel showing it to you, and how that comes back around in gratitude as an adult when he's the one who needs help. It's extremely emotional. I mean, I cry every single time I watch this movie without fail, and I've seen it probably 25 times. And as you know, I am not a rewatchable type.
Does he actually try to commit suicide in the beginning? I read that.
Wow. He is considering taking his life by jumping off a bridge. This takes place in upstate New York, so it's a frozen water. He has no chance of survival if he drowned himself, obviously. And basically Henry Travers, who plays Clarence, they have classified tiers for angels. So he is an angel who hasn't earned his wings yet, which I guess in heaven you have to accomplish certain missions to get your wings, be an official angel. So he's kind of like an angel in training, and this is his mission, which is to let George Bailey know life is worth living. And George has 4 kids. He's there's a whole secondary thing where he never got to leave, and he has always wanted to travel his entire life and just never got to for various reasons, star-crossed. There's a lot of moving parts here. You have to watch it. I think you're gonna like it. It's extremely emotional. Let's going up
White Christmas.
Yeah, it's going up against White Christmas, which is also a classic. Has Bing Crosby, who it looks exactly like my grandfather. So
hopefully your grandfather didn't act like him.
I was gonna say I have a soft spot for him physically. Maybe not as a person. But that's more of a comedy. It's a movie where it's your classic holiday adventure movie where there's comedy mixed into it. They're trying to accomplish. I forget what the plot is. Has something to do with, they have to make some sort of appointment or concert or something. And it's a comedy, and it's a classic. This is not. First of all, even people our age have seen It's a Wonderful Life and love It's a Wonderful Life. Some people do think it's too old, and that's where I think it's going to have a problem. I don't think it's going to win, even though it probably should. But in this matchup, this is the first matchup that we've gone over where I think it's going to be a total blowout. I don't know if White Christmas will get a single vote unless it's a protest vote in some form. They're both old, so it's not.
I think it's a fair
versus It's a Wonderful Life.
Looking at this list, though, outside of maybe Miracle and Christmas Carol, I think this is a fair matchup
this is these two legitimate 1 through 8. White Christmas deserves to be here, and It's a Wonderful Life is probably the 1 seed of the entire tournament. And to put that in perspective for you as we move on here, 92% Google rating, 94% Rotten Tomato, 89% Metacritic, 8.6 IMDb. So across the board, no matter who you ask, it is a fantastic movie.
You can't argue the stats.
Right.
For sure.
So that's my thought on that. This should wipe the floor. It's going to be really interesting when it probably goes up against Home Alone, because then you've got a real old school versus new school type of situation.
Well, speaking of wiping the floor, I actually think the 7th seed is going to wipe the floor with this 2 seed. So we have the classic A Christmas Carol, which it sounds like It's a Wonderful Life is loosely based off of. But A Christmas Carol has been redone so many times. I mean, it's a classic. It literally, to me, is the definition of the term classic. The novel is, extremely famous. That was written, if this is correct, back in 1843 by Charles Dickens, and the movie came out in 1938. So I think it's the oldest movie in this competition, which by virtue does make it the most classic. And I would say, if you have a favorite version of this movie, that's what you should be voting for. Kind of going back to what Vince said earlier, if the original is not your favorite, that's okay. Vote for your favorite version. But obviously very classic story and good feel movie, turning the bad guy into a hero and good guy. Very Grinchy type story, with some, interesting elements of ghosts visiting the main character. And it's a classic. There's nothing more to say to it. Scrooge is a classic character. I think it rivals some of the top characters in Christmas movies. It's always probably fun to play that character. Jim Carrey's been able to play that character in a much later version, not as well received version. But yeah, Christmas Carol, very popular. Muppets even made a version of it. Going against a movie that as a child I did not appreciate as much until being an adult. And when you talk about cult following, I mean, the Christmas Vacation, in my opinion, represents the definition of cult following. Like there are phrases from that movie that are ingrained in people's heads. When I lived in Boston, Massachusetts for a while, the sports talk radio every season would just constantly regurgitate phrases from Clark Griswold, who's played by Chevy Chase in this movie. And it's just great from A to Z. And it's another movie that highlights a dad, but the dad is like trying his best to put together, the holiday for his family, and just is ironically and very humorously failing to do so constantly, while working for a very big business that he's trying to win this. He's trying to get this bonus to pay for a swimming pool to surprise his whole family. And his whole family is a cast of characters. There's Randy Quaid being the ridiculous, I think, brother-in-law or cousin. No, cousin. I think he's a cousin.
Yeah.
He's a cousin. And just, yeah, from start to finish, it's just hilarious and bizarre and ridiculous. I think every generation appreciates this movie, which makes it cool too. But it kind of requires you, I think, to grow up a little bit. But yeah, it's got everything in it. It's got, setting up a ton of Christmas lights, that failing. It's got trying to put together a dinner, that failing. Rodents attacking the house. It's got Elaine Bennis, Julia Louis-Dreyfus in it as the, like, I guess, kind of villain neighbor that is just bothered by Clark Griswold. I think this actually came out either before Seinfeld or shortly during its run, but yeah, it's a great movie. It's classic. Randy Quaid is awesome in it. And National Lampoon's does a good job in movies, and Chevy Chase steals the show. So I think this 7 seed is going to absolutely obliterate the 2 seed, in my opinion. And if it doesn't, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. So going along with that, I think this is the most, and obviously it's no one's fault. I think this is the most unfair matchup in the entire bracket. And the reason is because A Christmas Vacation, I get why we did the rankings the way they did, and it's totally fair and it's scientific, and that's fine with me. It has no business in the eyes of voters to be a number 7 seed. A Christmas Vacation should be a number 1 seed. And it's one of the 3 movies, the other one being It's a Wonderful Life and Love Actually, that I think should win this tournament. Christmas Vacation, by the way, Jake, is you in 10 years. You are Clark Griswold. That is so true. that is going to be your life. That is very much like you guys could redo that movie.
You're probably right. I mean, I'm already putting up ridiculous decorations every holiday for my family, and I love it. And
it's a little different for you, obviously, because you grew up, not celebrating Christmas like a Christian would, but
sure.
But it will be, you'll have enough under your belt where you're gonna feel the beauty of this movie is that he tries to capture the nostalgic, like, childhood Christmas that no adult can ever do, because the reality is when you have your own family, you have to form your own traditions. You're never going to get back how it was 30 years ago when you were a little kid, because too much changes. Your kids aren't you. They have their own interests, they have their own things that they enjoy, and traditions and whatnot, and shit happens. That shit happens can be a slogan of this entire movie. Like, that is, it just random shit happens. It really, like, that's what happens during the holidays. You have relatives you don't like, you have relatives who are annoying, you have relatives who are old, you have like all of this movie has everything you run into in the holidays, and that's why people connect to it so well, because it defines everything that people go through during winter holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, either one, I think it applies to. So
he even puts, like, what is it? Canola oil or something on his sled.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a scene of him just like going like,
there's like 300
super
miles
fast down the hill into like Walmart.
Yeah.
I love that song, by the way. I always forget to like look for that song. I love that, like, vintage.
It has
like,
a great soundtrack 80s, in general.
80s, 90s, like,
89,
we're having
by the
fun
way.
Song. There you go.
Right.
89. So so literally the same year Seinfeld came out.
It's a big year for Elaine. But I mean, the neighbors, Todd and Margot, are like my favorite
Nice.
people in that I feel like is Melanie and I. Like we don't
There you go. So in
yeah.
a Hanukkah vacation, National Lampoon's a Hanukkah vacation. I
Yeah.
will be Chevy Chase, and
You're
you
gonna be
guys can
that
be the
family,
neighbors.
and we will be next door, like with minimal to no Christmas decorations, and like we're gonna have like the newest stereo that's out. The only difference is now we're having a child. Like if Melanie and I never were going to have a child, we would be that couple. And it cracks me up because as a kid, they're like the bad guys, but as I got a little bit older, I'm like, they kind of have a sweet life. I could see why having 17,000 watts of Christmas decorations would be annoying for your next door neighbor.
Oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, the why is the carpet all wet, Todd? I don't know. Margot is something my family says to this day several times a year. It's a very quotable movie. I think everyone, especially men, can relate to him even as a worker. You know, you work all year so hard, and then your boss just screws you with a bonus, with a slap in the face Jello of the Month Club or whatever it is, instead of
Jelly of the Month Club,
the money he thinks that he can use to put in a pool. So there's so much to it that everyone can connect to, and it's hilarious. That's the bottom line. And it's got Johnny Galecki as a little kid. So you've even got
oh my gosh,
Johnny Galecki as Russ, the son, which no one realizes.
That's right.
Until you
well, it changes to what's his face from all those 80s movies?
Yeah, his actor changes.
Breakfast Club and Edward Scissorhands, which I think didn't make the list.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name. But yeah.
So
that's funny. Yeah. That's
Beverly D'Angelo, total babe in 1989. Juliette Lewis is in it, which is funny. Randy Quaid, before he went crazy, obviously plays he's an iconic character, I would say, in Cousin.
Oh yeah.
And that's what National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation has going for it.
It's great.
Everything.
It's classic. Yeah, everything.
Reason I think it's unfair, besides the fact it's a 7, it shouldn't be. It's going against A Christmas Carol, and A Christmas Carol is going to get a bad rap in this because it's going to get destroyed by A Christmas Vacation. I have no doubt.
Well, it's hard to put a comedy against like a feel good story, where I think people during the holiday season. This is going to sound very sexist of me, but probably mostly men are going to be like voting for comedies as opposed to like the romantic or feel good movies. Right. And so, you know, like it's a hard matchup, but I completely understand why this is the way it is. And to your point, which is fine, but I'm excited for a 7 seed, you know, maybe like a Boston Red Sox wild card that really shouldn't be a wild card, but because they're in the same division as the Yankees, they're a wild card.
Yeah.
Not really the Atlanta Braves, you know, 7 seed, which that's more of like probably a jingle all the way, making it far. So, you know, it's a good matchup. I'm curious because there'll be some surprises.
Yeah, this won't.
And I think this won't be one of them, but I would be. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. But we're at the hour mark. I think we're making okay timing if we're going to do 2 hours for this bad boy. But maybe we should journey on to our 4-5 or 3-6.
I'll just say this real quick for A Christmas Carol. You're right. It does. It's a Wonderful Life does have a lot of tie-ins. It's the quintessential, like that's the spiritual message for Christmas is in A Christmas Carol. Muppets probably the second best version. Coincidentally enough, George C. Scott version is my favorite. I absolutely love A Christmas Carol. I still am not going to vote for it in this one, even as a 2 seed, only because of who it's up against. But it can probably knock out 25 of these movies, depending on the matchup. And unfortunately, it's not going to see the light of day. So
Christmas Vacation probably would have been a 2 seed if we went based upon like our pop culture people in our group.
If you did the polling and did it by vote, then I think, it would be up there, but that's not as fair. So I get it.
Talk about another unfair matchup. We have, I think this is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the TV special version and not like the theatrical 1998 different version. So I'm going to go with like the Island of the Misfit Toys version that came out in 1964. And so classic. I personally love all those those Island of the Misfit Toys movies. You know, Year Without Santa Claus, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, all that stuff. I find those very near and dear to my heart. It's great for kids. Animated movies, very feel good. You know, and this one, I don't think not many people know about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the story behind it, it's actually very representative of like what children go through in school, and kind of having some sort of deformity or something to be picked on and getting bullied about it, and then rising to the occasion to be the hero of the day. And in this special, basically Santa's gonna cancel Christmas, because it's just so ridiculous as far as the blizzard and everything that's happening. And he sees Rudolph's nose after he takes the fake nose off, and he's like, dude, you're gonna steer my sleigh. And then he becomes a hero. And like, obviously the music is, very, 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 very well known. Unfortunately, it is going up against one of the biggest juggernauts in like any holiday movie history, in Home Alone.
Yeah.
And I don't see it getting by this movie. And I think that's unfair to the movie itself, but I'm obsessed with Home Alone, so I also love Home Alone. But I think, Home Alone is just a childhood classic. Macaulay Culkin did a great job as Kevin McAllister. I mean, you have Joe Pesci as like the main comedic villain, who at the same time is going through like one of the biggest like New York mafia-esque careers, who's just a badass. And then you have him in this role which just makes it even fun. It's like Robert De Niro Meet the Parents. Like, it just makes it even funnier because of who they are. And it's a classic. He gets left home, which would never happen, but he does. And he gets left home, and he basically goes against these villains who are trying to rob the neighborhood. But I just love different things about this movie. Like, I love that they have like a fake movie that Kevin is obsessed with, this like old like 20s like shoot 'em out gangster film, which is just hilarious to me. They made it for the purpose of this movie. Christopher Columbus does a great job. The music is fantastic. John Williams, and like just the stuff like Joe Pesci was around kids, so he didn't want to actually curse on set. So he started doing the like that, and that wound up making it to the movie because he didn't like want to curse in front of the kids, and they wound up using it. I just love stuff like, I think that's great. And the other Daniel Stern, who plays the other villain, he's hilarious in just everything he touches. Rookie of the Year and this, obviously. And it's just, the cast is great. It's got the mom from Beetlejuice and the dad, like, no one knows this actor, but he's just in like a bunch of random stuff, and he's good. He's good in it. The uncle is hilarious. And actually, ironically, Kevin Macaulay Culkin's younger brother, what's his name? He's now actually a really big actor. He's on Succession. He just hosted SNL. He plays his younger cousin in this movie that drinks the soda and wets the sheets. And so it's just great. Buzz is a hilarious older brother that just picks on him and he hates him. It's classic. The only thing I don't care for about Home Alone 1, and if we want to include Home Alone 2, which I think Home Alone 2, I'm sure you'll talk about this too, I think it's actually a superior movie, is like the little, like, oh, the guy who shovels snow like has lost touch with his kid. Like, I don't really care for that as a kid watching that, but it is an element that is nice about feel good with this movie. So
it's Rudolph to me was weird. I don't like claymation. I don't like I appreciate the story of Rudolph. The song's fine. I don't care for it. It's not something I enjoy. Like, there's very specific holiday movies I like. Rudolph's not one of them. I would never go out of my way to watch it ever. So for me, this is an easy thing to just vote against every single time if it makes it past Home Alone, which it won't, because Home Alone is awesome. Home Alone, I am with you. I like Home Alone 2 more than Home Alone 1. It's got the Angels in the Outfield mom in it instead, which is an upgrade. And you've got Moira from Schitt's Creek as Catherine O'Hara.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the mom.
The foster mom is, oh my God, is the pigeon lady.
Pigeon lady is the mom from Angels in the Outfield.
That is wild.
Yep. And Moira from Schitt's Creek is Catherine O'Hara, who's Kevin McAllister's mom.
She's the Beetlejuice lady too. Yeah, she's
yes, the Beetlejuice lady.
And then you have what's his name? playing the concierge.
Tim
famous
Curry
actor Tim Curry,
from Rocky Horror
who's
Picture
great,
Show,
and then
or whatever
and
movie
then
you want.
what's his face as the other concierge guy that gets the tips.
It's not. Is it Rob?
And then
Schneider?
all the Adam Sandler movies. What's his name?
Rob Schneider.
Rob Schneider. Yeah. Which is dear to me because I actually was a concierge in my first job at a college.
Really?
So
awesome.
like we always used to joke about and say, this is the concierge, like just like how they do.
That was my dream job when I was like 16. But
you're not missing much.
I found that out. Never became one. But Home Alone 2 is an exact remake of Home Alone 1, by the way. I saw them back to back once. Yes. It's literally the exact same movie.
Which is a genius formula.
Different settings. Yeah, it is. And
that's
it
all you need to do in comedy.
Yeah.
All you need to do. Major League 1 and 2, same thing. All you need to do. Just remake it.
So anyway, Home Alone 1 and 2, I enjoy both of those movies. It's got really strong Christmas ties into it, like really good messages in it. I think it's going to win, and I think it's going to go very far. It's going to be what's going to break my heart, and I'll make this hot take prediction. I think Home Alone's going to take out It's a Wonderful Life in the second round, and that's it's not warranted. But I think that it's going to happen.
If it doesn't, I think Home Alone. It's going to be Home Alone Christmas Vacation. And the
be agreeing with me. That's what I mean.
I mean, I'd be shocked given our crowd, and I think it should. I actually think I think It's a Wonderful Life is probably one of the best movies ever, but I think Home Alone is that's a rewatchable to me, and that's like
Sean Razor. I am reaching out to you right now. You have to vote for It's a Wonderful Life with all your burners. Because I know he will. So there we go. But the last matchup of this region is maybe the one I have most pointed opinions about. Miracle on 34th Street is a good, solid movie. It's got a very iconic ending when they bring in the loads and loads of mail for the Kris Kringle, who they're trying to prove is actually Santa Claus. And it also has the cane in the corner scene, which is like how the little girl knows that he's magical. Those are two iconic scenes. That's really all I need to know that Miracle on 34th Street, which I also like because it takes place in New York City, and anything that takes place in New York City is like automatically a +10 for me. Is better than A Christmas Story, which is just the most steaming pile of shit in this entire region. This is the worst holiday movie. Any holiday you can take you can have Kwanzaa movies. You can have Purim. Is that the tree holiday in Judaism? Whatever you want. A Christmas Story is the worst holiday movie that's ever been released. Every single character is insufferable. The lamp is not funny. Fragile is a very easy word to pronounce. It's fragile. No grown man should be confused about it. No kid should want a BB gun. No weird pedophile Santa should warn this kid about the BB gun. Like, none of this is funny. And the mom's not funny, and she's weird looking. And the entire movie
very weird looking
is saying fudge, but it actually wasn't fudge with the lug nuts or whatever. None of that is funny. The double dog, the triple dog dare you is stupid. The 1950s or whatever is stupid. It takes place in Indiana, which is stupid. Not a single aspect of this entire movie is enjoyable, and I hate it. I hate every single second of this movie. There's not a single funny scene. There's not a character I like. There's not anything well acted. And Ralphie, I hate most of all, the main character. That's all I have to say about A Christmas Story. It is the worst movie by far.
If I didn't spend so much money on your microphone, I'd tell you to drop it. But that was amazing. Yeah, that was that rant. I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. I think the only character I liked was the villain, because he reminded me of like Roger Klotz from Doug. But outside of that, like, it's just terrible. And I will save my rant because this probably will win at least this round, because there's enough of a following. But you're just all a bunch of idiots because it's terrible.
It's so bad. I don't get it, Jake. I don't understand. This is some people's favorite holiday movie, because
it's like a cocky mimi version of like Willy Wonka, in a sense, where it's like, oh, it like came out during this time frame, and they have elements that like, oh, sticking the tongue to the pole, like, I've done that. No, you haven't. Like, just it
so
has
stupid.
Yeah,
it's so dumb. It is just I can't relate to anything in this. Like anything, my parents weren't dumb enough to pronounce fragile wrong. The mom has no personality whatsoever. It takes place in like God knows where. And
the main character, the casting of it is just terrible.
He's awful. He's awful. He's also a little. He's like a pussy kind of like.
He's absolutely a little.
Yeah,
you know what? Yeah,
random. Like the narration bothers me too. Because like adult narration supposed to be cute because he's a kid, but then he like cries randomly, which that used to piss me off about Rugrats so much, is that they would like be, you know, all tough and it's funny because they're babies, but then they like cry hysterically because they're also babies. I don't like any of that for some reason. It's like a big trigger for me. So when I watch this movie and he's like, you know, talking to us in his weird, stupid, like classic voice, and then he starts crying like little shit when he says the F word, the whole thing drives me nuts. I hate this movie so much.
Was like Fred or Ben Savage not available or something? Like they had to go with this guy, but
anything. Like, it's such a bad movie. I really hope it doesn't. I know Corey Decker is going to vote for it at a minimum. So you're right. I think it's going to win the first round.
It's gonna win the first round. If it beats Christmas Vacation,
I will stop. Vacation to
I'm telling you right now, if it beats Christmas Vacation, I will not do any more episodes with you. So if that's a driver motivator for some of you, that's fine.
Exist. We have to move on.
So real quick before we move on, because what won't make it to the next round is Miracle on 34th Street. Yeah. I saw the 1994 version. I didn't see the older version. And the only thing that I can say about it is it had John Hammond from Jurassic Park as playing Santa Claus, which is awesome. Nice. So that's good. It's very interchangeable character.
Yeah. I've only seen the old one. So
yeah. Oh, okay. There you go.
Also my mom's favorite holiday movie. So
yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, well, that will get a vote for me. So you can tell Denise that I will be voting for it.
I always say it's because her favorite Disney movie is Little Mermaid, and I feel like that's like the same thing. Like if you're looking at Disney movies, like you would like Little Mermaid if Miracle on 34th Street.
So if there was a round to speed through, I think this is probably the round to do it. And we're going to talk about what's called the Misfits next. Great description in the post by Austin on this one. By the way, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Highly recommend it. A lot of these movies are probably the most controversial in nature as far as like, you know, well, it takes place during Christmas, but the theme of the movie is not Christmas driven or motivated or really around it. So is it really a Christmas movie? I feel like there's a lot of debates in life. Like, is there a God? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Like those two are probably neck and neck for most debated things in this world. And so, you know, that's what this side of the tournament is mostly about. There's like movies like It's Happened on Fifth, which I really don't know much about, and Bad Santa and Scrooge, which are Christmas movies. But some of these here just, you know, in my opinion, have no business being in this tournament, but I understand why it is. So I'm going to quickly go through this 1-8 matchup. I love both these movies. These are phenomenal movies. Die Hard is fantastic. When Bruce Willis is coming out party in this movie, and Batman Returns is, you know, phenomenal. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton, Danny DeVito is the Penguin, great cast. And then Selena Kyle was just awesome. Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer played her. So both movies are great. They're awesome. Batman, Die Hard is Bruce Willis destroying German terrorists. You know, it's great. Christmas movies, I don't know, you guys decide, but that's all I'll say about this 1-8 matchup.
Yeah, this is a tough 1-8. I love both these movies as far as movies go. I think Die Hard's aged a little poorly. Just like German superheroes with long hair is very like 80s, early 90s to me. So in that sense, I'm like, whatever. But neither here nor there. Batman Returns I like better than Die Hard, actually. I think that was the best of the original Batman movies until the Dark. In fact, it's probably my second favorite Batman movie behind the Dark.
Definitely the best video game.
Yeah, excellent video game, which I still have. I loved all the clowns. Yeah, I mean, these are two good movies. I wouldn't consider either one a prototypical Christmas movie, which is why they're in Misfits. It just happens. Christmas happens to be like in it at points, but there's nothing directly related to Christmas about either of these movies. I would vote for Batman Returns in a major upset. I don't think that's how it's going to play out. I think Die Hard's going to
Die Hard will win.
Yeah,
I kind of want Die Hard to advance so it gets destroyed by like Scrooged or something. in this bracket.
I
But
have no doubt Die Hard's going to go to the final four. Only because the people who like Die Hard and consider it a Christmas movie, it's like, I don't know if they're trolling or it's a joke, but they're like very passionate about it. So I think it's got a pretty strong following there. And you can't really, outside of Bad Santa, the Bad Santa, well, we'll get to that in a second. Well, let's go to the next matchup. But Die Hard is going to have a strong
before we move on, there's two things I want to mention about this matchup in case either of these don't make it. One, Batman Returns. Somehow Christopher Walken made it into a superhero movie. Let's just start there. And awesome. And number two, in Die Hard, there's a scene in that movie that to this day makes me laugh hysterically. The FBI agents are in a helicopter and they're like coming down upon the building where John McClane is like trying to basically destroy the terrorists. And one of the FBI agents is firing a turret of the helicopter and goes, "It's like motherfucking Saigon." And the guy flying it turns around and goes, "I was in junior high, dickhead." And it's just like, what the fuck? Like,
what is that?
How did that even make it into the script? And why is that guy so, offended by that excitement? It's really bizarre. I just had to bring it up. It's stupid, but yeah. All right. So let's move on to this 2-7 matchup. I'm going to admit I have no idea what this number 2 seed is. Apparently, it's very well rated and reviewed online. So Tokyo Godfathers is a movie, has a lot of different elements about it, but basically an abandoned new. I'm just going to read the plot, to be honest, because I really don't know anything about this. But one Christmas Eve, after watching a children's performance of the Nativity, seeing 3 homeless people, a middle-aged alcoholic named Jin, a transgender woman named Hannah, and a dependent teenage runaway girl named Miyuki, discover an abandoned newborn while searching through the garbage for presents. So it seems like this movie becomes a feel-good movie and got some tough stuff in it. But I'll let you guys kind of research about it, do your homework, and vote upon it. I don't know much about it. I haven't seen it. I am going to watch it because it did make this tournament. It's going up against, in my opinion, a very fierce competitor in a 7 seed of Bad Santa, which I like about this round because it's actually centered around Christmas. And Billy Bob Thornton is just dynamite in this movie. I think there is a sequel to it. Not sure how well that did, but it's a comedy. It's to me, it's great. It's a basically heist movie again. So it's, burglars trying to basically steal on Christmas Eve. His Dorf Marcus is hilarious too. That guy's awesome. He's in a ton of movies. So there's even like a scene, I think, where he has sex with a very large woman. And so that's like a classic scene in the movie. And he's an alcoholic, and it's just, it's really good. But
I will say this: Bad Santa 2 came out in 2016.
Recent?
Yeah, wow. 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is terrible, but an 80%. Google rating 5.6 IMDb. So it seems like it might be a little bit better, more enjoyable than people give it credit for. Bad Santa, to put that in perspective, came out in 2003. 78% Rotten Tomatoes, 81% Google. Bad Santa is a good movie. And I'll apologize in advance. Tokyo Godfathers is one of the few movies that I just have I didn't even know it was a movie until it was nominated.
91% Rotten Tomatoes.
It has fantastic ratings. I want to watch it, and that plot
animated. I'm just warning you. It's animated.
I don't want to watch it. But it based on that plot, like that's a hell of a plot. Very interesting. And for 2003, that's a pretty advanced progressive plot to have a transgendered main character in it. So
there you go. A whopping $847,000 at the box office.
Yeah, obviously no one's heard of it then. But it's a 2 seed based on its very strong rating. I don't think it has any chance to get past Bad Santa, solely because whoever nominated it and maybe 2 other people have probably seen it. But it's
probably Felipe.
Yeah,
I bet you Felipe nominated.
It seems like a very Felipe type movie. But I've never seen it or heard of it. But I love Bad Santa, so I'm not going to vote for it.
There you go.
Bad Santa was great. Billy Bob was great. It's got Lauren Graham, who I kind of had a crush on in Gilmore Girls, as the main female character.
The parenthood lady.
John Ritter, rest in peace, was in this movie as well, as was Bernie Mac, also rest in peace. So, good cast. It is definitely a movie that you don't want to see with your children, probably, but I thought it actually was a pretty good Christmas movie. It had like a good plot for Christmas, just an adult theme, and the "F you Santa" stays sketched in my head forever. The sex scene with Billy Bob and Lauren Graham. For whatever reason, I don't remember what age. I'm guessing I was 16 when I saw it because that's when it came out. But
Yeah.
that scene is like etched in my, not for like, sexual gratification purposes. It's just etched in my head forever. I could just hear her saying that over and over again. And it's, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I'm voting for Bad Santa. It's a legitimately good Christmas movie, just not your normal take. And I kind of respect that. And it's in the Misfits, so it makes sense. I think if any movie has a chance to knock off Die Hard before the final four, it's Bad Santa.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
We'll see. I could be right.
Okay.
There could be like 6 people who vote for it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think Bad Santa. I think also a couple matchups for now. There's a movie that could get there, depending on how much our modern day pop culture people have watched older movies. But we'll talk about that in a second. All right, moving on to our 3-6 seed. I think we should spend the least amount of time on this matchup. Lethal Weapon, great movie, all around fantastic. Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, and a buddy cop. The future movies are very humorous. They even brought Joe Pesci in and Chris Rock. Great movie.
What's the
overall
Christmas tie-in at all to Lethal Weapon?
I guess maybe it takes place during Christmas, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen Lethal Weapon, not in.
Did people just want a Die Hard alternate?
I mean, no one questioned it, so I assume like Batman Returns. I remember took place during Christmas. Die Hard, I get there's like a Christmas party going on. I don't remember at all what Lethal Weapon has to do with Christmas. I like the movie, and I've never seen it happen on Fifth, but I'm familiar with it. That's all I have to say. I'll vote for Lethal Weapon, but neither of those movies has a prayer, not a single solitary prayer of getting past the second round.
They use Jingle Bell Rock in the opening, which
it?
I'm reading about this right now, and it looks like it's very Christmassy. Yeah, I need to go back and watch. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, to be honest.
I guess so, yeah.
So maybe it does have a really good tie-in, maybe even better than Die Hard. But it's happened on Fifth. I'll be honest, is another one that I have no idea on. I think it's old. It's 1947. Yeah. The second richest man in the world. A hobo makes his home in a seasonally boarded up Fifth Avenue mansion each time its owner, the second richest man in the world, winters at his Virginia estate. McKeever winds up taking in ex-GI Jim Bullock, who has been evicted from an apartment building O'Connor is tearing down for a new skyscraper. And later, 18-year-old Trudy Smith, who is actually O'Connor's runaway daughter, Jim soon invites war buddies, Woody and Hank, and their families to share the vast mansion when they are unable to find homes of their own. So, no idea still. Yeah, synopsis, but do your research on this film. I don't really have much more to say on it. It's made the list. It was nominated. It's a 3 seed, which hey, it's probably rated pretty well.
Pretty good reviews. Yep.
Yeah, I think Lethal Weapon will take this one.
I don't think anyone's going to connect to it happen on Fifth. So sorry. Yeah. Let's bring it home here for Misfits.
You want to start us with Gremlins?
This certainly fits the Misfits category. We could say that much. Yeah. Again, I haven't seen Gremlins in a very, very long time. I like that Howie Mandel's in it. It has very good rate. I guess I didn't realize. I always thought Gremlins was one of those like cult following type movies, but 85% and 86%. So it's a pretty good movie according to people who have seen it. Came out in June, so that's one of my first problems with it. It's not obviously a prototypical holiday movie, but it's kind of got like a whole father-son thing, right? If I remember correctly. Do you remember the plot to Gremlins?
Yeah, I mean, it's like basically it's like the hot toy of the season or whatever, but it turns into like an actual like alien like thing or whatever, like that comes to life, and then there's whatever it faces off with other gangs of gremlins and stuff like that. But I saw it when I was a kid. I again, like same here, I need to watch it again, and I will, because I've heard a lot of people talk about this movie that's actually extremely hilarious. So that I want to see it, because apparently it's like a heralded heralded comedy.
I remember not being disappointed seeing it. I think the fun facts I'll throw out there is it's based on a Roald Dahl book, which cracks me up. $11 million budget and it made 212 million. So it is like, I mean, that's a smashing movie. It did a fantastic job. And the one other thing I'll mention about it, you know who wrote it? The movie in this case.
No. Who?
Chris Columbus.
Oh man, dude's just a holiday.
That dude is a horror. Yeah, I mean, he just dominated holiday.
He's a holiday horror. I'm wrong. It's not a hot toy. It's actually a random toy that this guy finds in a store in Chinatown. So it's not like Turbo Man dealio.
Okay.
It's like
I mean, case in point, though, besides the fact that it's Howie Mandel, Scrooge has Bill Murray. It's more of a Christmas movie to me. It's also an 80s. I'll vote for that instead. So
yeah, and to be honest, like if there is a Christmas themed role fit for Bill Murray, it is to be like Frank Ross from The Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
as like perfect for him in this role, and it's hilarious to say the least. So I'm going to vote for Scrooged as well, but I do want to watch Gremlins again.
Yeah. And by the way, Scrooge came out late November, so that even just based on that, I would vote for it because I'm a big that came out
super
for the
Christmassy,
yeah,
super
right.
Christmassy. I think Scrooge, this is what I was talking about earlier, has a slight chance to either, well, it's got to go through Bad Santa, so that may be a hard obstacle to face. But if it does, I think it could beat Die Hard as well in this tournament. So
I was going to say, just looking at it, I think it might have I don't know how many people have seen Scrooge. We do have a very strong Illinois/Chicago presence in pop culture life. So maybe that helps Bill Murray a little bit. But I think it has a shot to beat Bad Santa, but it's going to be one of those things. This is what I say about the Giants every time I watch them every week. They'll either win by 3, like Scrooge could either like edge Bad Santa, or it'll lose by like 40 votes.
Well, there's there's like movies too that like your dad sits you down or your parents sits you down and like has you watch, and hopefully it wasn't A Christmas Story, and hopefully it was Scrooged, and like that's what happened, at least, for me and my friends, was like, I would have probably never seen it, but like the boomer generation is like, you need to watch this movie now that you've reached like a teenager. Like you need to watch this movie now. And then like my one of my best friends, Steven, it's a tradition for him and his family to watch this movie. So
that's hilarious.
I'm hoping Pop Culture Life has like that, where like they probably haven't taken upon themselves to see it, but it's been kind of like handed down like a West Side Story or something.
Yeah.
All right, Misfits. Good on you. Let's move on.
We'll see.
We're going to get to what's deemed as the kids bracket. So a lot of kids themed movies. And some of these, I'll be honest again, are like maybe unknowns, or you have or haven't seen. I don't know what this first matchup, I guess it doesn't matter, but was this designed to be like the Jim Carrey live action Grinch Who Stole Christmas, or like the old classic
Grinch? Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Yeah, I like both a lot. So I think either or is great in my opinion. So Grinch Who Stole Christmas, it is actually a heartwarming movie. My wife Jess cries every time at the end of the old classic version, not the Jim Carrey version. And it's it's great. It's got humor. It's unique in my opinion. And yeah, I think the Jim Carrey versions, I think Jim Carrey to me, it's like one of the best characters ever performed in a movie was Jim Carrey's version of the Grinch in this movie. And it's got some other classic actors in it, like William H. Macy and stuff. Ron Howard, I think, directed it because his brother's in it, and his brother's always in every movie he directs. And so great movie. The classic is a good one. The book's great. And Home Alone 2 features the classic Grinch Who Stole Christmas in the limo scene when he's going to the toy store. And yeah, it's just an overall great movie. Santa Claus the movie, another one. No idea. When I first saw this, I thought it meant the Santa Claus with Tim Allen. So I clarified on the post. I was like, hey, just make sure you guys know. But it apparently is world renowned, got a lot of votes in our pop culture. It was a play-in. It made it as an 8 seed. I think it'll get absolutely destroyed by Grinch in this first round. I would be surprised if there's one vote for it actually in this first round matchup. But yeah, ancient times, man named Claus delivers toys in a small village and fulfills his destiny to become Santa Claus after meeting an expert toy maker, Patch, in the North Pole. So yeah, that's I guess the premise. And then there's more. In the present day, Santa Claus has become overwhelmed by his workload, and his disgruntled Patch flees the workshop to New York City. There, Patch knowingly threatens the fate of Christmas by taking a job at a failing toy company run by a scheming businessman, John Lithgow. Whoa. Okay, so there are some names in this movie. Yeah, do you have any idea about this movie? I didn't know it for this competition.
Claus, I'm familiar with. It came out fairly recently. I think it was like a couple of years ago, which is probably why it was like a right pre-pandemic movie that came out.
Well, this is the Santa Claus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Claus.
Yeah.
Santa Claus, the movie. No, I got totally tricked. I have no idea why it's in in the bracket to begin with. It's a British, it is a British Santa Claus movie, which.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, totally hypocritical because Love Actually, like I said, is one of my top 3 in this entire thing. And that's also an English movie. But Santa Claus is, yeah, I forget how I knew it was English related, but it came out in 85. I have no attachment to it. I've never seen it. But it's not How the Grinch Stole like Grinch Stole Christmas is a movie that's held up over time. If you're growing up celebrating Christmas, you probably saw it. Whereas Santa Claus, the movie, half of the people who voted for it thought it was the Santa Claus by Tim Allen. And so it's an 8 seed for a reason. It probably sucks. I mean, Grinch.
All right. Well, Santa Claus the movie, you've been gifted a bracket spot, much like anyone from the NFC East is gifted a playoff spot because
it's the charity selection.
Yeah.
Now Claus in the next matchup against Arthur Christmas, that movie's legit. And it came out only a couple of years ago. 94% Rotten Tomatoes and 92% Google. And an 8.2 on IMDb. So, and it came out in November, so it passes my test there. So I'm a big, I don't know if I've seen it chronologically, but I'm familiar with it. And I know it had, it's got a few actors in it, like Norm Macdonald, J.K. Simmons is in it, and Jason Schwartz.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Claus. I have no attachment, like emotionally, to either of these movies, but I like it just based on the premise more than Arthur Christmas. So for me, out of all 4 of these movies we just discussed, I think it's going to be Claus versus How the
Claus will take it. Arthur Christmas is one of those like animated movies that is pretty good. It's about like the son of Santa Claus and he steps up.
I'm out on that.
You're out on that. Okay, yeah. It's also a cartoon, so you may not like it either.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, we quickly did the Claus versus Arthur Christmas, so we'll move into the bottom tier of this kids bracket. We got the Muppets Family Christmas versus The Year Without Santa Claus. I think, this is the Muppets Christmas movie I don't like as much as the other, which is the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
It's primarily around Fozzie Bear. Fozzie Bear's good, but like, I don't know. I mean, the Muppets don't really make bad movies, I guess.
Right.
But the plot is not really like an exciting plot, but it's a Christmas movie. It's the Muppets. Jim Henson, go for it. Year Without Santa Claus, is to me pretty solid. It's an animated flick, so you won't like it, but it's one of the classic like Misfit Toys movies. So
I have seen part of Year Without Santa Claus, and what always pissed me off is that doesn't he have like a cold?
Yeah.
It's some like shitty,
that's the whole thing of it.
Santa would never not do his one day of the year where he's relevant because of a cold. Like, why couldn't he like have like broken his neck or something? That always annoyed me as a kid. Like when I saw that, I was like, what? He has a cold. Like no one calls out over that.
Yeah, it's cold up there. It's cold up there,
And why does he? Yeah, what? No.
Drizzle. You got a drizzle.
The dude also has cold. He has magic, by the way. So what? Like, there's no magic for his immune system. It just like it just bothered me. It's a weak excuse. As a weak Santa, I don't subscribe to it. My Santa stronger.
How often do you find kryptonite to be logical in fiction? Like,
But at least that as a backstory, like it's Superman, it's from Krypton. So if you can get your hands on it, then great. It's his one. This is like Santa. Years and years, he never had another cold.
Listen, it would be so fitting that like the Achilles heel of Santa Claus is he gets a cold one season, which is ironic because he lives in this.
Yes, this is signs where the aliens are allergic to water. Like it's that bad of a plot to me.
No, it's super dude being lactose intolerant, from all that.
Just based on that and the fact the other one's Muppets, which I agree with you, by the way, like Muppet Caper, Muppet Crusaders, Muppet Christmas Carol, they're all better than Muppet Family Christmas, but I'm voting for Muppet Family Christmas solely based on that one plot. Like,
wow, okay. To me. I thought you were going to be one of those, like, close your eyes and just randomly select.
They're both animated, so I hope they get to we'll get to the next matchup because
Muppets aren't really animated.
It's not.
It's in that category people. For you. Yeah, fine.
Well, that's another reason I would vote for Muppets is that it's not.
They had a Haunted Mansion ride movie that just came out, which I actually loved. JJ and I loved it. But they generally feature, at least the newer ones, feature people like Jason Segel was in.
Yeah, well, I mean this one though. So my caveat here is that I'm definitely voting for Muppets in this matchup.
Okay, all right.
I may have to vote for it in the next matchup, and I'll tell you why as soon as.
Oh no! Don't be a Polar Express hater. Come on now. No. I'm definitely a Charlie Brown hater. So this next matchup is the last matchup in the kids bracket and the one that we'll discuss in this podcast, but. Charlie Brown Christmas, which is very beloved by a lot of people out there, including my wife. She likes the Great Pumpkin Halloween episode too for Charlie Brown, and the Peanuts are a very beloved franchise. I don't understand why. Maybe I didn't grow up in that world. I will say my kids love the books, so whatever. Snoopy, I could care less about.
Disgusted by your wife right now. She just disgusts me.
Huge Peanuts fan. Huge Peanuts fan. And then I don't even know why they're called the Peanuts. We'll have to clarify that at some point. But the Polar Express, which is the opposite, because my wife hates Tom Hanks, stars Tom Hanks as a conductor for taking all of the kids who stop believing in Christmas due to some reason and brings them to the North Pole to see Santa Claus on a wild Hogwarts-esque ride where they get hot cocoa and a random hobo is visiting and deterring them from reaching their destination. But so it's Polar Express solid. I think when it came out, it like crushed the competition for holiday movies. People were just like so like taken aback by it. It was like a weird version of animation that we hadn't seen before, and Tom Hanks was in it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't know. I first watched it and I liked it, and I've seen it over the years, and I'm like not as crazy about it as I used to be, but I see the allure to it. I actually hated the animation in it. And so this I'm probably going to choose Polar Express because I don't like Charlie Brown at all, but 2 versus 7. I think that the seating makes sense in this bracket. Actually, well, no, I think Polar Express should be higher, but I think 2 for Charlie Brown makes sense.
Well, Polar Express almost didn't make it in because I don't think it was nominated.
Oh, that's right. It was a play-in.
It was a play-in, and it wasn't nominated until like the last few hours of voting. Like people just completely. Whoa. I think that Tamarae Decker actually was the one who ended up.
Of course, it was a Decker.
Yeah. I mean,
of course.
Yeah. So
the Deckers and Felipe should be banned from this bracket. Is that possible?
I'm okay with this.
I love you guys.
Here's where I come down on this. You know how I said that It's a Wonderful Life was like 10 tiers above any other movie, like as a movie in this bracket?
Yes.
Well, A Christmas Story, I feel like is 10 tiers worse than any movie in this bracket. But if I had to choose a second worst movie or thing, because it's not, I guess, technically a movie, Charlie Brown Christmas is that choice. And the reason being that when I was a kid, and Meredith can relate to this because she was involved too, we would go to our cousin's house for like several Christmases in a row, probably like 10 of them. And we got locked into a room with the other kids basically because they didn't know how to like entertain us, and just put on Charlie Brown Christmas on loop over and over again. So I've probably seen Charlie Brown Christmas 100,000 times, and I absolutely hate it. And I've always hated Peanuts, and I hate Snoopy, and I especially hate what's her face, the mean one.
The black hair girl.
Yeah, like the main
Yeah.
antagonist.
I don't know.
And I hate Charlie Brown because, again, just like Rugrats and just like Ralphie, he's a pussy.
I don't understand how you hate Rugrats. That's beyond me.
Rugrats my least favorite show of all time.
It's bizarre.
So Polar Express I don't love, but the thing I distinctly remember about Polar Express is it was a really good book. And we used to.
It's a book. Okay.
Yeah, we read the book when I was in like very early in grade school, probably like second grade. And I distinctly remember a Jewish woman read it to us, and I only know she was Jewish because it was Jonathan Illich's mom, and I knew he was Jewish because on Hanukkah she came in and like presented something Jewish related.
Did Jonathan Illich know how to spell or pronounce fragile correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
He like ended up going to the University of Michigan. He's a smart guy.
Okay. All right.
But his mom had come in and like shared some sort of Jewish story. But if I remember correctly, and I could be totally wrong
on this, the grandpa from Rugrats.
It was like 27 years ago. I thought she came in too and read a Polar Express to me and cried. Polar Express as a book is a very touching story. It's a really good Christmas
I'll give
story.
You that.
As a movie, I didn't think it was so great. I'm kind of with you there. The animation's weird. I'm actually a big Tom Hanks fan, but I don't think this was one of his finer moments. And as a movie, I think it's just mediocre. But against Charlie Brown Christmas, like I'd vote for it if that. I would vote for it to win the entire thing if it meant Charlie Brown did not. So I will definitely, and quite frankly, if we're looking at this bracket, this is a very winnable bracket for anyone. There's not a single movie in here that I would say is like.
I think Grinch is going to take it pretty easy. I think it's going to be.
I do too, mainly because its competition's super weak.
Yeah, this is like an unfair advantage for Grinch here, who would probably get smoked if it was in this top bracket up here. But I'll say so. Maybe we should, before we end the cast, maybe it'd be good to go through our top two and winner for each.
Let's go through every
quadrant.
single matchup. We'll just make our picks for bracket straight through and be done with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can just you can make your final four selections, I guess. We don't have to go
I'll just say Elite Eight and then your final four.
Elite Eight's good. Yeah. So go.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna say Grinch versus Polar and Kids, and I think Grinch will take it to represent the kids in the final four.
I think Grinch is going to beat Klaus, and I think it's going to beat Polar Express. Grinch over Polar Express in the Elite Eight.
Okay. And then modern. Here, I'll let you go first in modern, then I'll go after you.
Ooh, this one's much tougher. I'm going to say Nightmare Before Christmas loses to Love Actually. That's really hard. This is like how I felt about the baseball playoffs this year. Like I could be completely wrong.
I'm trying to just think of like what our group is like. I would personally pick the Santa Claus to represent this group over Jingle All the Way, but I think it's going to be.
I changed my. I think
it's going to be Santa Claus over Elf.
I think Elf's going to beat Love Actually.
Okay, so you're going to say Elf. Yeah, I think Elf's going to beat Nightmare, which is shocking, but I think Elf's going to beat Nightmare, and then I think the Santa Claus.
That's the tough one.
Yeah.
Santa Claus. I do think it'll be Santa Claus and Love Actually, and that is a total toss up to me.
Yeah, that's a hard matchup in this round. But yeah, so my final pick will be Elf over Santa Claus to represent the modern and final four.
Okay, and I'll say Elf over Love Actually. So it's going to be Elf on the top right, and it's going to be we both decided on Grinch bottom right.
Yeah, okay, which I think Elf will beat Grinch to go on to the finals, which is crazy to me. That's crazy. That Elf would be I think
that's a terrible outcome. It'll make my wife happy, but I think just by the numbers, I agree with you.
Yeah, which tells me that the winner is probably going to come from this side. So
yeah, this is a brutal side too.
This is a brutal side. So let's go. Let's start off with the crappy Misfits down here.
There we go.
I think we already talked about this. But I'm okay. So I'm going to say Bad Santa over Yeah, I'm gonna say Bad Santa over Die Hard, to represent Misfits in the Final Four.
I'm going to say the opposite. I think Die Hard's going to go over Bad Santa. I
Okay.
would honestly be shocked if Die Hard was not in the Final Four, even though it has no business being there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So then we have the classics left. You start off with this one.
This is going to break my heart. I can already tell you this, and maybe because it's the classics, and it's just very me. This is going to be the region that breaks my heart and pisses me off the most. Like, I'm going to vent the most out of this region because I think that it's going to be. I think Christmas Vacation is going to blow out Home Alone in the Elite Eight, and I don't even think it's Wonderful Life's going to make it that far.
I think I will be shocked if it's anything but Home Alone and Christmas Vacation in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say those two as well. And I believe Home Alone. I want Christmas Vacation to win. I believe Home Alone will win.
Oh, I don't think that'll be close.
Really?
Christmas Vacation versus Die Hard to me is going to be the bloodbath of the entire thing. The Final Four on this side.
Okay. All right. So you have Christmas Vacation versus Die Hard. I have Home Alone versus Die Hard. I think Die Hard will not escape either matchup. So I think it'll be either Christmas Vacation.
That I agree with. Yeah.
Or Home Alone. And I think either of those would beat Elf, which would make one of those two being the champions of the tournament.
Yes. My final prediction.
I think Christmas Vacation should win it all.
I think it can. I think it should. It's one of my 3 approved movies to win it all, and I think it will. I think it's going to be Christmas Vacation over Elf in the championship. That's my prediction.
Okay, so there we go. Bros are saying Christmas Vacation or Home Alone over Elf in the finals to take it as a 7 seed. Let's see if there are any spoilers to get in the way on the way. Yeah, I guess before we wrap this up, Vince, any last thoughts on the bracket at large? Yeah.
Well, again, I wanted to thank Austin for putting that together. You probably can relate even more so as to how annoying it is to do that. I think we have it down to a science now, both in all of the life groups, as far as how to get these things done with the least amount of complaining, because there's always complaining. So thank you, Austin, for that. We look forward to him joining us on future podcasts to drop in and help organize this. Like I said, I could not go to bad enough for It's a Wonderful Life. I think it's falling on deaf ears. It's just going to be a product of age, but I'm looking forward to this. And so everyone knows, next week there will not be one. Reason being that how it's going to work from here is we're going to release the brackets and start the voting. You will have one matchup per day, but it's going to be open for 48 hours. So after the first matchup, so tomorrow, for example, the first matchup's out there. On Tuesday, the second matchup's released, and the first one still has voting. So you'll have 2 to vote on Tuesday, and it'll be like that going forward. 48 hours to vote. Each day a new one's released. Jake and I will reconvene more than likely 2 Sundays from now. We'll have a Sweet 16 at that point, and then we'll go from 16 to 8, make our predictions, do the same thing we just did, go over those reviews. It'll probably be a shorter podcast, or we'll just talk longer. We'll see. And then we'll get down to
a long one because we had to go over 32.
Yeah, and I think we'll go weekly after that. So our goal here is to basically get us into the holidays, and before Christmas time, we will have a best winter holiday movie decided by Pop Culture Life, and then we can kind of see where we go from there. But we definitely want interaction on these podcasts, and we definitely want voting. So vote often, vote early. You can only vote once, but hopefully, tell your friends to vote too.
Yeah, shout out to Mel for being such a big fan of ours too, and watching our podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to comment on kind of Austin's role in this a little bit more, I can definitely relate. It is a lot. You saw the spreadsheet. There's work, not just in research, but also in documentation and pleasing the community, and it's very hard. I don't give a crap about pleasing the community. So hats off to Austin about, if you're caring about that and doing it justice. But yeah, I look forward to hopefully seeing some hearts broken, but seeing some spirits lifted. And it's going to be a fun bracket. I like that we're doing like a podcast along. That's like the first of its kind. It was like a podcast along the polls. I know some lifers have joined Pop Culture for the purpose of the polls. Other lifers hate the polls, so it'll always cause some fun controversy and excitement there. But yeah, this is going to be fun, and I look forward to seeing what the results are in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for joining us. We good luck on the polling. Happy polling, and we'll reconvene in a couple of weeks. We look forward to seeing how these matchups play out. Everyone have a great night, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good.
Goodbye.